was Solomon who said, there's nothing new under the sun. What has been before. What has been done before. He painted a picture of a universe of endless repetition, of a life that's trapped in an endless cycle of the mundane, the monotonous, the meaningless. In fact, in Ecclesiastes, he begins by telling us that everything is meaningless, that life is meaningless, that love is meaningless, that hope is meaningless, that all human existence is nothing but meaningless. I understood exactly what he meant. I remember when I was 12 years old and my mom and stepdad came to me and told me that they wanted to send me to a psychiatrist, and I just started screaming, I'm not crazy, I'm not crazy, I'm not crazy. And they panicked and started telling me I didn't have to go. And then I had this moment of self-awareness and I realized I looked absolutely crazy. So I stopped, I went back and I said, you know, if I've lost my mind, I need to know. And so I was an early achiever in neurosis. I started going through therapy and trying to understand why I was so broken inside. I remember for years I had nightmares after nightmares after nightmares. In fact, I was afraid to go to bed at night, and I would stay awake all night and could hardly get out of bed in the morning. And I had no reason to wake up, no reason to live. And I felt so empty inside. I felt as if there was this black hole inside of me, expanding and expanding, growing, taking me over. And I felt as if I could hardly breathe. I was being suffocated by despair. I have a scar across my stomach where they opened me up, and they described it as exploratory surgery because they had no idea what was wrong with me. All I knew, I was sick. And the problem, of course, was that there was nothing wrong with my body. It was my soul that was sick. It was the deepest part of me that was broken. There was something inside of me that had become fragmented. And I understand what Solomon was saying, but it began to gnaw at me when I would hear this phrase, there's nothing new under the sun, there's nothing new under the sun. But I didn't hear it as a statement of despair. I kept hearing people say as if they were so glad that there was nothing new under the sun. And when I discovered faith and the world began to look differently to me, and I began to think about the possibility that there was hope and meaning, and that there was this creative process that we're supposed to be a part of, and it began to awaken something inside of me. And where once it might have given me comfort in my despair, now something inside of me said, this just can't be right. I know Solomon is supposed to be the wisest man who ever lived, but somehow I was certain that Solomon was wrong. For the first 20 years of my life, what Solomon was saying, that life was just meaningless, that resonated with the voice inside of me. I heard over and over and over again. And in fact, if you read his words in the book of Ecclesiastes, he just keeps saying, it's all empty. We all come from dust, we return to dust. There is no meaning in our work, there's no meaning in our love, there's no meaning in our lives. And all of a sudden I knew. What Solomon was saying was that life without God loses its deepest meaning. That we were created for more than this. That we're supposed to be more than just flesh and blood. We're supposed to do more than just wake up and go to work and go to sleep. We're supposed to do more than just survive. That we're supposed to live our lives fully alive. And the only way we can do that is when we find our meaning in the God who created us in his image and likeness. All of a sudden, the world began to look differently. All of a sudden, everything that was black and white, everything that seemed to be barren and empty was filled with life and opportunity and possibility. The problem, of course, is that sometimes we don't have the eyes to see it. What Solomon was describing what was the conflict inside of the human experience, that we are both dust and breath, that we are both flesh and spirit, that we are like the gazelle and the tiger, the lion, the elephant, and yet we're more than that. We can also be more accurately described as being created in the image and likeness of God. And inside of all of us, we have a sense that there's a temporary nature to life, that we began from dust and we end in dust, and yet that there's something more, something transcendent, something eternal in us. There's that life in us that somehow we know is to connect to something more profound and deeper than anything we can touch or feel or smell. I love in the scriptures how it says that after 6 days, God rested from his work of creating. I love that God's job was to be a creator, that God in his essence is an artisan. And what he created was the universe all around us. What he created was the beauty and majesty of this earth, this planet, this solar system, this galaxy, this ever-expanding, unexplainable, mysterious universe. And one of the unique features of this planet Earth, is that God created it to produce life. That every aspect of this earth is a picture of God's creative essence, that every creative act produces life. From the soil that produces the grass and the wheat and the fruit and the vegetables that we eat, to a planet whose water replenishes itself and quenches our thirst, to an atmosphere that somehow fills our lungs with exactly what we need to breathe deeply and live, to a solar system that's designed so perfectly that the earth is not too close to the sun where we're consumed, or too far where we're frozen to death. Everything God created this earth for was for life. When we live our lives outside of God, we find ourselves trapped in the created order. But when we live our lives inside of God, we find ourselves alive as a part of the creative order. When we're a part of the created order, we begin to experience what Solomon is talking about, how everything is this endless cycle, it's this vicious system that we cannot escape, and we find ourselves trapped in the mundane and the monotony of life. But when we become a part of the creative order, when we become alive in God, we begin to realize that our imagination is the playground of God, where we begin to see a future that can be created in partnership with him. Remember, Solomon said that there was nothing new under the sun? Well, Isaiah disagrees. In Isaiah 43, he says, "Put away the former things. Do not dwell in the past. Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up, but will you even be aware of it?" For a long time, I felt obligated to agree with Solomon. But then I began realizing that this was Solomon's worst moment. That if you listen to the narrative of the scriptures, if you listen to the voice of God, what he's saying is, look around. The new is everywhere. Behold, open your eyes. I am doing a new thing. He tells us there's a new song, a new earth, a new heaven, a new covenant, that there is new wine, that there is new life, that we are a new creation. Solomon couldn't have been more wrong. Not only was he absolutely, emphatically, adamantly wrong that there's nothing new under the sun, but every time the sun comes up, it is a promise that his mercies, his compassion, his loving kindness, his imagination, his creativity is waiting to bring the new.